Right then guys, got some news about James Bond 25 today for you. Now, I'm sure a lot of people have been reading some headlines here and there. We know that Danny Boyle was signed on as the director, which would have been an absolutely fantastic choice. He doesn't normally do big budget movies. He normally does a little bit more low budget indie projects where he has a lot of creative control and can really push his own influence into the film. So it was a great choice to have him sign on for Bond 25 because he adds a new flair that we just wouldn't have seen at all in James Bond. And it's a real shame because he has now walked away from the project entirely due to reported creative differences. Now, although none of this is confirmed, we do have some information regarding what those creative differences were, and it also gives us an interesting look at what the potential movie was either going to be or could still be, depending if they go and use Danny Boyle's idea. So Danny Boyle had the idea of a Russian style modern day Cold War. He was going to have a Russian villain, and that was going to be the main focus point to the film, a modern day Cold War, which would have been quite interesting, to be perfectly honest. It also does represent what is happening in everyday life at the moment because of the issue with the Russian poisoning which happened in the UK. So it's obviously a massively exaggerated version of real life events, but it still would have rung true for certain people here and there and wouldn't have been unbelievable by any stretch of the imagination. Now, Danny Boyle had the idea of casting Polish actor Tomasz Kot, who featured in Cold War. He was going to be the unidentified lead villain, but apparently this actor Tomasz Kot was viewed as potentially left field to play the character. They didn't really want him to play the character, and Daniel Craig, the man who famously said he would rather slit his wrists than play James Bond again, has final say on casting choices, and he vetoed everyone and said, no, I don't want Tomasz Kot to play in the role, which is a bit of a shame because when you've got the lead actor giving final say on casting choices, you do run the risk of a bit of a conflict of interest there, especially with a director's vision. A lead actor should never have final say in casting choices because a director knows their own vision, they know what they're going to want to show on screen, and a lead actor is just that. They are just an actor. So I feel like that's a really bad choice, and it's not very smart that they gave him that much say. But anyway, that is what has happened, and as a result of that, apparently Danny Boyle left. Now, there are some other bits and pieces of information. It sounds, allegedly, like the issues started from the outset, because apparently the longtime Bond producer and the owner of the rights, the Broccoli family, Barbara Broccoli, was reportedly absolutely raging. She was infuriated by Danny Boyle's insistence that he would bring on his own team, which included his writing partner John Hodge, and this then resulted in a script by Neil Purvis and Robert Wade being put on hold. So, as it stands at the moment, because the planned release date is October 25th of next year, we don't know currently whether they will use Danny Boyle's idea of a modern day Cold War or whether they're going to go back to the older script which was being penned by Neil Purvis and Robert Wade. Obviously that one hasn't been confirmed that it's even been finished yet. So at the moment what it stands like is that we've got no director, we've got no story currently by the looks of it, and we don't know where they're going to go in the kind of direction for this film. It's interesting that they gave Daniel Craig as much power as he has in this film because he was very open that he did not want to play James Bond again. He said he'd rather slit his wrists. You can find it online. It's a direct quote from the man himself. Danny Boyle would have been a good choice. Not only is he different with his kind of creative decisions, is he a great director? Absolutely. But he also worked on a James Bond featurette for the London Olympics. He's worked with Daniel Craig before. Very surprising to see them both at loggerheads with one another over a casting choice. You'd think that Daniel Craig would actually be on board with Danny Boyle's decisions, because obviously they've worked together in the past. You don't think that they would be up against one another. But it is interesting to see how this develops, because of course Daniel Craig is not exactly up in Hollywood at the moment. He doesn't do an awful lot in terms of acting range throughout various stories. In fact, he hasn't done a lot for quite some time. So I am very, very surprised to see how this develops. Of course, this will highly likely delay the process of releasing the film, because they still don't have anyone signed on board. If this was going to be released in October of next year, they really do need to pull their fingers out, because you're looking at maybe three months is an average for a film to be filmed in. But with respect to James Bond and the action set pieces that are primarily the focus point to the movies, and then the intricate set pieces which they have along with choreography, I would hazard a guess that a 3-month filming time for a James Bond movie would actually be cutting it quite close. So this is a watch this space and see. The movie will highly likely be delayed. It's a huge loss to the James Bond franchise that they have lost Danny Boyle, that he's walked. It's a massive shame. They had 2 movies which absolutely were underwhelming in the franchise. They kind of sunk it a little bit, and everyone was left going, well, what was Blofeld about? Why did we have this villain? It also sets itself up nicely for Daniel Craig to walk from the role. It was a 3-movie arc, and his arc was almost done. So it's very surprising to see that he is signed on. So it is interesting to see the loss of Danny Boyle. So I want to pose this question off to you guys as well, is who would you rather see in the directing chair now that Danny Boyle's gone? Who do you think would be a good fit, especially providing that they need to succumb to Daniel Craig's final decision on casting, and also just the overall creative control which the Broccoli family have over the Bond franchise? Who do you think would be a good fit? Let me know down below in the comment section. Is this a film that you're even looking forward to? Because of course the last 2, like I said, were very underwhelming and left a lot of people with a sour taste in their mouths. So is this a film that you're looking forward to? Do you even want to see Daniel Craig back in the role as James Bond, or would you rather see someone else? One of the names that keeps popping up is of course Idris Elba, which throws out a whole other discussion to have based on the race of James Bond. Just from a personal perspective, the race of James Bond is not something which I overly care about. If they were to cast someone with the general mannerisms, the suave, sophisticated sort of sensibilities which have become synonymous with James Bond, and also that somewhat sleazy attitude, I don't care. I absolutely do not care. Idris Elba, which is one of the names which keeps popping up, to me, from a personal perspective, I believe that would actually be a very, very good fit. And there's a reason why his name's been popping up time and time and time again. But of course, a lot of people will refer back to the books and how James Bond has always been portrayed as white. But overall, it's not one of those things which I really care about. You can't sing that it's whitewashing, because the character of James Bond has always been white. It's kind of ingrained in the character. But if he was to be black, I don't care. It's not something which I mind at all. I do not care. Who would you like to see if Daniel Craig would not be your choice? Let me know down below in the comment section. Guys, if you're new here, please do hit that subscribe button. I know this is a longer video today, and there was just a lot to cover, so I know that it was kind of long and somewhat rambly in parts, but there was a lot to cover and I wanted to bring you all up to speed. But as these articles have been released, this is more of a summary to do with the whole thing, more of a discussion based video. So like I said, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button, check out everything else I've got on offer. As always, give this video a like and a share if you enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts down below. I've been Mr. H. I'll catch you in the next video.